Hello guys, welcome to Monkey DFIC. So in this video, we will see what if Luffy awakened Gear 5 against Doflamingo. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Awakening. The entire city of Dressrosa trembled. Buildings collapsed like they were made of paper. Screams echoed through the streets as citizens ran for their lives. Above it all, a massive birdcage of razor-sharp strings slowly contracted, threatening to slice the entire island and its inhabitants into bloody ribbons. In the center of this chaos, Monkey D. Luffy stood, his breathing ragged, his body covered in wounds. Across from him hovered Don Quixote Doflamingo, the tyrant who had enslaved this kingdom, his signature pink feather coat stained with blood, most of it his own. The man's ever-present smile had twisted into something manic, desperate. "You're finished, Straw Hat." Doflamingo bellowed, blood dripping from his mouth as he formed more deadly strings between his fingers. "I've seen every trick you have. Your precious Gear 4 has failed." Luffy wiped blood from his chin, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "I'm not done yet." But the truth was, Luffy was running out of options. His Gear 4 form had indeed reached its limit, leaving him temporarily unable to use Haki. The 10-minute recovery period might as well be an eternity with Doflamingo's birdcage closing in on the citizens below. Through blurry vision, Luffy saw his allies fighting desperately below, Law, barely conscious after their tag-team battle with Doflamingo, the gladiator Rebecca trying to protect her father, his nakama scattered throughout the city, buying him time. They all counted on him. "I won't let them down," Luffy muttered, trying to stand straighter despite his body screaming in protest. Doflamingo laughed, the veins on his forehead bulging grotesquely. "This is the difference between us. I'm a god who rules from above. You're just a monkey who learned a few tricks. Shut up." Luffy charged forward, but without his Haki, his attack was easily dodged. Doflamingo's strings sliced across Luffy's chest, adding new wounds to his already battered body. "What happened to all that confidence, Straw Hat? Where's that man who declared he'd be Pirate King?" Luffy crashed into a half-destroyed building, rubble collapsing around him. Through the dust, he saw the birdcage constricting further. In minutes, it would begin slicing through the outer districts of the city. Damn it. Luffy struggled to his feet, his legs wobbling. "Everyone's counting on me." Across the broken cityscape, his allies continued fighting against impossible odds. Zoro, Kinemon, and others strained against the birdcage, trying to push back against its inexorable contraction. Citizens ran in panic, trampling each other in their desperation. Doflamingo descended, his hands moving to form more deadly strings. "I'll give you credit, Straw Hat. You forced me to use more power than anyone since Virgo and Law's little rebellion. As a reward, I'll make your death quick." "I'm not gonna die here," Luffy growled, fists clenched. "Too many people are counting on me. Look around you." Doflamingo spread his arms, gesturing to the destruction. "This is my game. I hold every piece. I control this island, these people, even the air you breathe. This is what real power looks like." Something deep inside Luffy rebelled against those words. Not just anger, something ancient, something that had been sleeping within him stirred at the sight of people in chains, at the sound of a tyrant's laughter. Doflamingo's strings formed into a massive, deadly spear. "It's over, Straw Hat." The spear shot forward, aiming straight for Luffy's heart. In that split second, as death approached, Luffy heard it, faint at first, then growing louder. Thump thump. Thump thump. A rhythmic beating, like drums. Not from outside, but from within himself. Thump thump. Thump thump. The drums of liberation. "What is this?" Luffy whispered, even as the string spear closed in. Thump thump. Thump thump. Time seemed to slow. Luffy felt something unlock inside him, like a door that had always been there suddenly swinging open. Power surged through him, different from anything he'd felt before, not the focused intensity of Gear 2nd or the bouncy strength of Gear 4th. This was something wilder, freer, something that laughed in the face of limitations. What the? Doflamingo's eyes widened behind his sunglasses as his string spear made contact with Luffy's chest, and bounced off, the deadly point bending like it had hit a cartoon character. White steam began pouring from Luffy's body, but unlike his previous gear transformations, this steam formed swirling clouds around him. His hair turned white, his body seemed to glow, and a wide, almost manic grin spread across his face. Whoa! Luffy looked at his hands in amazement. I feel weird. Like I could do anything. Doflamingo stumbled back, genuine fear flashing across his face for the first time. What the hell are you? Luffy blinked, then stretched his arm, but not like his normal stretching. His arm looped and curled impossibly, defying all physics before snapping back. Huh. My body feels super weird. Like I'm made of rubber but, more rubbery. The heavenly Yiksha didn't wait to find out more. He launched a barrage of strings, each capable of slicing through steel. Die already. Luffy didn't dodge. He simply stood there as the strings hit him, and bounced off like they'd hit rubber. Not just his rubbery body, but even the air around him seemed to have gained rubber-like properties. No way. Doflamingo muttered, his confidence cracking. Luffy grabbed his own nose and stretched it to ridiculous proportions, then let it snap back. This is kinda fun. Hey, Mingo. Check this out. With a movement so fast it looked like teleportation, Luffy appeared in front of Doflamingo and grabbed his face. Gomu Gomu no. Face stretch. To Doflamingo's horror, his own face stretched like rubber, pulling into a ridiculous expression. What the? Release me. Luffy let go, laughing as Doflamingo's face snapped back to normal. Even you can be rubber if I want. This is awesome. Below them, Law had managed to pull himself up to witness the battle. His eyes widened in shock. That's impossible. That's not just awakening. That's something else entirely. Doflamingo recovered his composure and snarled, You think some new trick changes anything? I am still a god in this world. Luffy's expression suddenly turned serious, though the wild grin remained. You're not a god. You just think you are because you've been looking down on everyone for so long. I'll show you the difference between us. Doflamingo's body contorted as he unleashed his ultimate technique. God Thread. The sky above filled with deadly strings, forming a massive, complex web that descended toward Luffy like divine judgment. Luffy looked up, unimpressed. That's a lot of string. Then he smiled again, wild and free. But I can do something cooler now. He reached up and, impossibly, grabbed the very air itself. With a motion like pulling down a curtain, he yanked, and Doflamingo's god thread distorted, wavering like a mirage before collapsing entirely. What? Doflamingo couldn't believe what he was seeing. You can't just, I grabbed the space your strings were in and moved it. Luffy explained, sounding as surprised as Doflamingo. I don't really get it either, but it feels right. On the ground, citizens had stopped running to stare upward at the battle. Even in their terror, they couldn't look away from the glowing, white-haired figure who moved like something from a children's cartoon, defying reality itself. He's fighting Doflamingo. But what is he? He's glowing like the sun. Is that, a god? The whispers spread through the crowd, a mixture of awe and hope replacing their fear. Doflamingo's fury reached new heights. The veins on his forehead threatened to burst as he summoned every ounce of his power. I don't care what trick you're using. This is my kingdom. I am the one true god here. He launched himself at Luffy, his body transforming into a mass of strings, his awakened form at its most deadly. Heavenly Demon. Luffy met his charge head-on, no longer dodging or blocking but simply taking the hits and bouncing back, his body contorting in impossible ways before snapping back to normal. "You know what your problem is, Mingo?" Luffy asked, his voice somehow both playful and deadly serious. "You think freedom means controlling everything. But real freedom is letting things be what they want to be." With that, Luffy pulled back his arm, which stretched impossibly far, looping around buildings and doubling back on itself. As it stretched, it grew to massive proportions, becoming larger than Luffy himself. "Gomu Gomu no Budgerum Gun." The gigantic fist shot forward, carrying with it not just Luffy's physical strength but something more, the embodiment of freedom itself, a force that had slumbered for 800 years. Doflamingo threw everything he had into a counterattack, forming a massive shield of strings. "You're nothing. Nothing." The fist collided with Doflamingo's defense, and for a moment, they seemed evenly matched. Then Luffy's grin widened. "I can hear it," he said. "The voice of your strings wanting to be free." And impossibly, Doflamingo's strings began to waver, as if responding to Luffy's voice. They twisted away from their master's control, parting like curtains before Luffy's massive fist. "No!" Doflamingo screamed as the fist broke through and slammed into him with the force of liberation itself. The impact sent Doflamingo crashing through the city, through buildings, through the very earth itself until he lay broken in a crater so deep it reached the bedrock of Dressrosa. The shockwave rippled outward, but somehow spared the citizens, the destructive force guided by Luffy's subconscious will. Above the city, the birdcage wavered and then, like a popped balloon, vanished entirely. Silence fell over Dressrosa. Then, gradually, cheers erupted from every corner of the city. People wept, embraced, celebrated their freedom from Doflamingo's reign of terror. In the sky, Luffy hovered, white hair flowing, his body glowing with an inner light. For a moment, those watching thought they saw the silhouette of something ancient and powerful superimposed over him, a being of pure joy and freedom. Then the glow began to fade. Luffy's hair returned to black. His eyes rolled back, and he began to fall from the sky, completely exhausted. "Luffy!" His nakama shouted in unison, rushing to catch their captain. Zoro reached him first, leaping from a rooftop to grab Luffy mid-air before landing safely. The others gathered around, a mixture of concern and awe on their faces. "What the hell was that?" Zoro asked, looking down at his unconscious captain. Robin's eyes were wide with historical knowledge and new questions. "I've never seen anything like it in all my research." He was glowing. Usopp exclaimed. Like the sun," Law finished, limping toward them, his sword used as a makeshift crutch. "Like Nika." "Nika?" Frankie repeated. Law nodded, his expression grave. "An ancient legend. The sun god. A warrior of liberation who brought laughter and freedom." He looked at Luffy with new eyes. "But that's just a myth, or it was supposed to be." Before they could discuss further, the sound of marine battleships approaching reminded them of their precarious situation. "We need to move," Zoro decided, hoisting Luffy onto his back. "Whatever that was, we can figure it out when he wakes up." As they retreated through the cheering crowds, word of Luffy's transformation was already spreading. Citizens spoke of the sun coming down to free them. Of a god with a human's laugh who fought like a force of nature itself. Thousands of miles away in Mariehua, the 5 elders gathered in emergency session, their faces pale with shock and ancient fear. "It's happened," one said, his voice trembling despite his dignity. "The fruit has awakened." After 800 years, another whispered. "The world government has spent centuries trying to acquire that fruit, and now." The oldest among them slammed his fist on the table. "We should have killed him at Logue Town. At Eni's lobby. At Marine Ford. We've had so many chances. We couldn't have known," a third elder reasoned. The Gomu Gomu no Mi was just a ridiculous paramecia to all appearances. But we did know it was stolen by Shanks, the first countered. We should have connected the dots sooner. What's done is done, the fifth elder, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. The Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika has awakened. The sun god has returned. They all fell silent at those words, the weight of history pressing down on them. We must take immediate action, the first elder declared. Send CP0 to eliminate Straw Hat Luffy. Contact all admirals. This takes priority over everything. Will that be enough? The second questioned. If the legends are true. Then we invoke contingency void, the oldest said grimly. The empty throne must not be challenged, no matter the cost. As the five elders discussed their plans, the Den Den Mushi continued to relay reports from Dressrosa. The fall of a warlord would normally be their primary concern. Now it was merely a footnote to a much greater threat. The return of Joy Boy. The awakening of Nika. The drums of liberation beginning to beat once more. Back in Dressrosa, as the Straw Hat Pirates and their allies retreated to the relative safety of the Thousand Sunny, Luffy remained unconscious, occasionally mumbling in his sleep. Shishishi, so free. His body occasionally sparked with residual power, causing his limbs to stretch and contort of their own accord. Chopper worked frantically to stabilize him, mystified by readings that made no medical sense. His heartbeat keeps changing rhythm, the reindeer doctor reported. And these brain patterns. I've never seen anything like them. Law watched from nearby, his own injuries temporarily patched. It's not just a physical transformation. Whatever that power is, it's changing him on a fundamental level. Robin approached, a rare expression of uncertainty on her face. In ancient texts, there are references to a warrior god who would return someday to turn the world upside down. I always thought it was metaphorical. On a nearby table, Luffy's straw hat sat innocuously, seemingly unchanged by the events. Yet Robin found her gaze drawn to it repeatedly, as if it too held secrets yet to be revealed. What happens now? Nami asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Law's expression darkened. Now the world government will stop at nothing to eliminate him. What we saw today wasn't just Luffy defeating a warlord. It was the emergence of the world government's worst nightmare. As if to punctuate his words, the first news coups arrived, special editions already being printed and distributed across the world. The headlines were massive, the images blurry but unmistakable. Sun God appears in Dressrosa. Straw Hat Luffy defeats Doflamingo with divine power. Underneath was a grainy photo of Luffy in his transformed state, white hair flowing, body glowing, that impossible grin stretched across his face as he prepared to deliver the final blow to Doflamingo. The world would never be the same. Across the seas, powerful figures received the news with varying reactions. In the new world, red-haired Shanks looked at the newspaper and smiled. So it's finally happened. You're bringing the dawn, Luffy. On Baltigo, revolutionary leader Monkey D. Dragon stared at his son's transformed image with fierce pride. The world order is about to change forever. In the shadows of the new world, Marshal D. Teach, Blackbeard, erupted in laughter. Zihahaha. So the boy had a different fruit all along. The game gets more interesting. And on a remote island, a samurai looked up from the newspaper with shock. The prophecy, the dawn, could this be what we've been waiting for? 3 days passed before Luffy finally awoke on the Thousand Sunny, which had long since departed Dressrosa and now sailed through calm waters, temporarily safe from pursuit. Meet, was his first word, followed by a confused look around the infirmary. What happened? Did I beat Mingo? His Nakama exchanged glances before Zoro stepped forward. You beat him all right. But we need to talk about how you did it. Luffy tilted his head. Huh. I used Gear 4th and then. His face scrunched up in concentration. Then I heard these weird drum sounds and everything got super funny. I felt like I could do anything. Robin showed him the newspaper. Luffy, you transformed into something different. Luffy stared at the image of himself with white hair and glowing skin. Whoa. That's me. I look awesome. But super weird too. Do you remember anything about what that power was? Law asked intently. Luffy frowned, thinking hard. It felt familiar somehow. Like I'd always been able to do it, I just didn't know. He grinned suddenly. And it was fun. Everything got all rubbery, not just me. That's what we're concerned about, Robin explained gently. This transformation matches ancient descriptions of a deity called Nika, the sun god. A god? Me? Luffy burst out laughing. That's stupid. I'm just Luffy. Despite his dismissal, something flickered in Luffy's eyes, a momentary recognition, quickly suppressed. Whatever it was, Jinbe interjected, the world government is taking it very seriously. Marine presence has doubled in these waters since Dressrosa. We've intercepted communications, Frankie added. They're calling it Incident Nika, and treating it as a top-level threat. Luffy shrugged, unconcerned. So what's new? They've been after us since forever. This is different, Law insisted. Before, you were just a troublesome pirate. Now, you represent something that terrifies the world government to its core. Luffy looked around at his Nakama's serious faces and sighed. Look, I don't care about being a god or whatever. I just got stronger, that's all. And now I can beat stronger guys and get closer to becoming Pirate King. As always, Luffy's straightforward perspective cut through the complexity. His crew couldn't help but smile, reassured by their captain's unchanging nature despite his changing powers. Can you do it again? Usopp asked eagerly. The glowy, white hair thing. Luffy concentrated, scrunching his face comically. Nothing happened. Nope. Can't figure it out. It just happened when I really needed it. Like your other gears when you first developed them, Sanji observed. You'll figure it out. Yeah. Luffy agreed cheerfully, then clutched his stomach as it growled loudly. But first, meat. I'm starving. As Sanji went to prepare food and the others dispersed to their duties, Robin lingered, watching Luffy with scholarly interest. Luffy, she said quietly. During your transformation, did you see anything unusual? Maybe memories that weren't yours? Luffy's smile faltered just slightly. Maybe. It was all jumbled up. But there was this feeling like I'd been waiting for something for a really long time. He shook his head vigorously. Probably just hungry. Robin nodded, not pressing further, but made mental notes to consult her historical texts again. As Luffy followed his nose toward the kitchen, he paused by the railing, looking out at the sea. For just a moment, he could hear them again, the faint echo of drums, calling to him from across time itself. Joy Boy, he whispered, the name coming from nowhere. Then he blinked in confusion. Huh? Who's that? Before he could dwell on it, the smell of Sanji's cooking pulled him back to the present, and he raced to the kitchen, thoughts of mysterious gods and ancient names forgotten in favor of more immediate concerns. But the drums remained, beating softly beneath the surface of his consciousness, waiting for the moment they would be needed again. In the weeks that followed, word of Sun God Luffy spread across the world like wildfire. In places where people suffered under oppression, they whispered his name with hope. In the halls of power, they spoke it with fear. On a small island in the New World, a group gathered in a hidden tavern, passing around the newspaper with the famous image. They say he can bend reality itself, one man whispered. I heard he freed thousands of slaves with a single laugh, a woman added. An old man tapped the table solemnly. My grandfather told stories of the sun god who would return someday to free the world from its chains. I never believed them until now. In the corner, a hooded figure listened intently, memorizing every detail to report back to the Revolutionary Army. Dragon would want to know how his son's new power was affecting the political landscape. The emergence of the sun god was becoming a symbol, a rallying cry for those who dreamed of a different world. On the Thousand Sunny, Luffy continued trying to activate his new power deliberately, with limited success. Occasionally, when excited or angry, his hair would flash white briefly, or he would perform some impossible rubber feat that defied his usual abilities. "It's like it has a mind of its own," Luffy complained after another failed attempt. "Perhaps that's exactly it," Robin suggested. "The power of a god can't simply be commanded. It might require specific circumstances." Nami looked worried. "Let's just hope those circumstances don't include being nearly killed by a warlord again." Luffy just laughed. "Don't worry. I'll figure it out eventually. I always do." His confidence was infectious, but as night fell and the crew slept, Luffy remained awake, sitting atop the Sunny's figurehead, his special seat. He stared at the moon's reflection on the water, uncharacteristically thoughtful. "A god, huh?" he murmured to himself. "That's not what I want to be. I just want to be the freest person in the world. The Pirate King." As if in response, the drums echoed faintly in his mind, almost like laughter. Luffy grinned despite himself. Okay, I get it. Freedom first. That's what matters." Somewhere deep inside, something ancient and joyful agreed completely. In the heart of the holy land of Mariehua, the Gorosei gathered once again, this time with their most secret ally. "The situation is worse than we feared," one elder reported. The awakening was complete. The Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika, has revealed its true form. From the shadows, a voice responded, ancient, powerful, and filled with cold fury. "After all our efforts to erase that name from history. After all we did to hide the truth of the void century. One fruit. One insignificant pirate. What shall we do, Im-sama?" an elder asked with bowed head. A pale hand extended from the darkness, pointing to Luffy's bounty poster. "Erase him. Not just his life. His very existence. Nothing can remain of Monkey D. Luffy or the power he wields. And if others have seen too much, the world knows of his transformation now." The figure known as Im stepped fully into the light, eyes cold with determination. "Then perhaps it's time for a cleansing. The ancient weapons exist for a purpose, after all." The elders paled at the implication. "You suggest?" "I suggest we remind the world why we are its rulers. Why the empty throne remains empty only by my choice." Im's voice was soft but carried the weight of centuries. "The dawn Nika promised will never come. I've prevented it for 800 years. One more upstart god will not change that." As the elders bowed in acknowledgement, Im gazed at Luffy's smiling face on the wanted poster. "The drums of liberation, indeed," Im whispered. "Let's see how well they play when the drummer is silenced forever." The sun rose on a new day aboard the Thousand Sunny. Luffy stretched and yawned, ready for whatever adventures awaited. "Hey, guys," he called out to his crew. "Where are we heading next?" Little did he know that the power awakened in Dressrosa had set him on a collision course with the darkest secrets of the world, secrets that had remained hidden for 8 centuries. The drums of liberation had begun to beat once more. And this time, the whole world could hear them. Chapter 2, Ripples across the Grand Line. The Thousand Sunny cut through the waves like a dream, putting distance between itself and Dressrosa with every passing hour. The ship's lion figurehead seemed to grin with pride at carrying the crew of the newly revealed Sun God. Luffy sat cross-legged on the grassy deck, his face scrunched in concentration. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he strained, clenched his fists, and focused with everything he had. Come on, work already," he muttered. Nothing happened. Arg. Luffy fell backward, arms and legs sprawled out. "I can't make the glowy thing happen again." Around him, his crew watched with varying degrees of amusement and concern. Chopper had set up a small monitoring station with medical equipment, while Usopp sat nearby sketching what he remembered of Luffy's transformation. Robin closed the ancient text she'd been consulting. Forcing it might not be the way, Captain. But I want to do the bouncy stretchy everything thing again. Luffy whined. It was so cool. You looked like a cartoon character, Zoro said, leaning against the mast. Even more than usual. Sanji exhaled a stream of cigarette smoke. Whatever it was, the world government's losing their minds over it. The news coup brought 3 special editions yesterday alone. I've been monitoring marine transmissions, Frankie added, looking up from the communication device he'd built. They're calling it Incident Nika and mobilizing forces we didn't even know existed. Nami traced her finger along a map, calculating routes. We need to stay off the main routes. They've deployed at least 12 battleships to this sector already. Luffy sat up, picking his nose casually. So what? We've dealt with Marines before. Not like this, Robin said quietly, her expression serious. They're treating this as an extinction-level threat, Luffy. What now? They think you could end the world as they know it, Law explained, joining the conversation. He'd remained aboard the Sunny temporarily, his crew following in their submarine. And they might be right. That's stupid. Luffy laughed. I don't want to end the world. I just want to be Pirate King. Law exchanged glances with Robin. Both understood something Luffy didn't, that the world government's fear wasn't irrational. Whatever power had awakened in Dressrosa carried historical significance beyond Luffy's understanding. Try again, Brooks suggested, plucking a gentle melody on his guitar. Perhaps music will help summon your inner god, Yahohoho. Luffy nodded enthusiastically and closed his eyes, listening to Brooks' music. He focused on the feeling he'd had during the fight with Doflamingo, that sense of absolute freedom, of rubber reality, of joyful power. For a brief moment, a flicker of white energy danced across his skin. His hair shifted color slightly, not fully white, but streaked with it. The deck beneath him seemed to ripple like rubber. That's it. Usopp shouted. You're doing it. Startled by Usopp's shout, Luffy lost his concentration, and the effect vanished immediately. Damn it. Luffy flopped back again. I almost had it. Interesting, Robin mused. It seems emotion plays a role. During your battle with Doflamingo, you were pushed to your absolute limit, physically and emotionally. So I gotta almost die to use it. Luffy frowned. That's inconvenient. Perhaps not death specifically, Robin clarified. But extreme need, combined with your will to protect others. Luffy nodded thoughtfully, then his stomach growled loudly. Thinking's hard. Sanji. Meat. Sanji sighed but turned toward the kitchen. You'd think a god would have more dignity. I'm not a god. Luffy called after him. I'm just a rubber man who got more rubbery. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Law remained with Robin, speaking in low tones. The legends about Nika aren't just fairy tales, Law said. The connection to the Void Century is clear. Robin nodded. My research suggests the same. The question is, how much does the world government know, and what are they willing to do to keep it secret? Law's expression darkened. Anything. Everything. We need to be prepared. Far above the ocean, a specialized world government aircraft cut through the clouds. Its sleek black design bore no markings, its technology far beyond standard marine equipment. Inside, 5 figures sat in silence. Their matching white suits and masks identified them as CP-0, Cypher Pole Aegis 0, the world government's most elite and secretive agents. The leader, distinguished by a custom mask with red streaks like bloody tears, studied reports on Luffy's transformation. This was Director Voss, one of the most feared operatives in world government history. The transformation matches all historical accounts of Nika, Boss stated coldly. No room for doubt remains. Monkey D. Luffy has awakened the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika. After 800 years of keeping that fruit's true nature hidden, another agent noted. How did we miss this? Because it was stolen by Red Hair Shanks 12 years ago, Boss replied. The connection wasn't made until it was too late. The fruit's rubber properties effectively disguised its true nature. Director Voss, the pilot, called from the cockpit. We've received updated coordinates from our trackers. The Straw Hat Pirates are heading toward Zo. Zo. Voss repeated. The Wandering Elephant. Interesting choice. Strategic, another agent commented. A moving island is difficult to besiege. Voss closed the file. It doesn't matter. Our orders come directly from the 5 elders, authorized by Am-sama personally. Monkey D. Luffy must be eliminated before he can fully master the power of Nika. And his crew? Asked the lone female agent. No witnesses, Voss replied without emotion. The secret of the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika, must remain buried. Any who have seen its awakened form are to be terminated. Even Trafalgar Law. He's a warlord. Former warlord, Voss corrected. The system is being abolished as we speak. Another consequence of the Dressrosa incident. The agents absorbed this news silently. The world was changing rapidly, power structures shifting in response to a single pirate's awakening. Intercept course set, the pilot announced. We'll reach the Thousand Sunny in approximately 3 hours. Voss nodded, then stood and moved to a specialized container at the rear of the aircraft. He entered a complex code, and the container hissed open to reveal an ancient-looking weapon, a staff with strange markings. Is that, one agent began. See Prism Stone, infused with technology from the Void Century, Boss confirmed. Specifically designed to combat awakened devil fruits. The world government has kept this in reserve for centuries, waiting for this exact scenario. The other agents stared in awe. They'd reached a level of classified information few even knew existed. We strike without warning, Voss instructed. Target Straw Hat first. Use maximum force immediately, no escalation. He must not be allowed to transform again. Back on the Sunny, dinner had evolved into a planning session. Maps spread across the dining table as the crew discussed their options. Zo makes the most sense, Nami argued. It's moving, hard to find unless you have a Viva card, and the Mink tribe would help protect us while Luffy figures out this new power. But it's also where the rest of my crew is heading, Law pointed out. We'd be putting them at risk too. Everyone connected to me is already at risk, Luffy said with unusual seriousness, a drumstick halfway to his mouth. That's nothing new. A brief silence fell over the table. Despite his often childlike demeanor, Luffy occasionally demonstrated profound understanding of his position and responsibilities. Then we should, Sanji began, but stopped abruptly, his head turning toward the door. Something's coming. The others tensed, reaching for weapons. Sanji's observation haki was exceptionally sensitive to hostile intent. How many? Zoro asked, hand on his swords. 5, no, 6, Sanji replied, concentrating. Moving incredibly fast. They'll be here in minutes. Marines? Frankie asked, already moving toward the door. No, Robin said, her eyes closed in concentration, using her devil fruit to scout ahead. Worse. White suits. CP0. A chill fell over the room. Even Luffy's expression turned grim. They're not taking prisoners this time, Law warned, grabbing his Nodachi. This will be an elimination mission. Luffy stuffed the remaining food in his mouth and stood. Let them come. No one threatens my Nakama. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, taking battle stations without needing orders. Frankie headed for the helm, ready to execute emergency maneuvers. Usopp climbed to the crow's nest with his sniper rifle. Nami prepared her climb attack while Robin crossed her arms, ready to sprout limbs anywhere needed. On the deck, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Law stood ready, facing the sky where the threat would appear. "Luffy," Law said quietly. "If there's ever a time to figure out that transformation again, it's now." Luffy nodded, closing his eyes briefly, trying to summon the feeling. The faint echo of drums teased the edges of his consciousness, but remained frustratingly out of reach. "They're here," Sanji warned, seconds before a sleek black aircraft appeared overhead, seeming to materialize from the clouds themselves. The craft hovered silently, then its bottom hatch opened. 6 white-suited figures dropped from it, landing on the Sunny's deck with such precision that the ship barely rocked. Director Voss stepped forward, his masked face revealing nothing. "Monkey D. Luffy. By direct order of the 5 elders, you are to be terminated immediately." Luffy picked his nose nonchalantly. "Yeah. You and what army?" "We are CP0, Voss replied coldly. "We don't need an army." "Neither do I," Luffy grinned, dropping into a fighting stance. "I've got my nakama." Voss raised a hand, and the CP0 agents blurred into motion, moving with speed that surpassed even Gear Second. They targeted different crew members simultaneously, a perfectly coordinated attack. The Straw Hats were ready. Zoro's swords flashed, intercepting 2 agents at once. Sanji's leg ignited as he caught another with a devastating kick. Robin crossed her arms, sprouting limbs to grapple with a 4th agent. Law created a room, his Nodachi slicing through reality itself. Luffy faced Voss directly, stretching his arm back. "Gomu Gomu no pistol." Voss caught the punch with one hand, seemingly effortlessly. Is this all that a sun god has to offer? With blinding speed, Voss counterattacked, driving his palm toward Luffy's chest. Luffy barely twisted aside, the blow grazing his ribs with enough force to crack bone. "Gah!" Luffy stumbled back, eyes widening. The agent's strength was on another level entirely. Around the ship, the battle raged. The CP0 agents were showing abilities far beyond regular Rokushiki techniques. One phased through Zoro's slashes like a ghost before solidifying to strike. Another absorbed Sanji's flames and redirected them. "These aren't normal government agents," Law shouted, narrowly avoiding a strike that would have severed his spine. "They've been enhanced," Robin realized, wincing as her sprouted arms were systematically broken by her opponent. Advanced modifications. On the upper deck, Nami created thunderclouds while Usopp provided covering fire, but a CP0 agent simply walked through the lightning, unbothered, heading straight for them. "Frankie! Get us out of here!" Nami screamed. "Working on it, sis." Frankie shouted back, grappling with an agent who had infiltrated the engine room. Luffy shifted into Gear Second, steam rising from his body. "Gomu Gomu no Jet Gatling." His fists blurred with speed, raining down on Voss from multiple angles. The CP0 director weaved between them with impossible grace, then countered with a single precise strike to Luffy's throat. Luffy choked, stumbling backward. He shifted to Gear Third, inflating his arm to massive proportions. "Gomu Gomu no Elephant Gun." The gigantic fist crashed down, but Voss simply raised his strange staff. Upon contact, Luffy's inflated arm instantly deflated, and weakness coursed through his body. "What the?" Luffy gasped. "See Prism Stone, specially processed," Voss explained emotionlessly. "But far more than that. This weapon was created during the Void Century specifically to counter the power you now possess." Across the deck, the Straw Hats were being systematically overwhelmed. Despite their strength and coordination, the CP0 agents moved with machine-like precision, targeting weaknesses, predicting moves. "We need to retreat," Law shouted, creating a room large enough to encompass the ship. "Shambles." He attempted to teleport the entire Sunny to a safer location, but one of the agents appeared beside him, driving a C-prism stone dagger into his shoulder. Law's room collapsed instantly. No escape, the agent stated flatly. Luffy struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his mouth. He looked around at his nakama being pushed to their limits. Zoro bleeding from multiple wounds. Sanji's leg bent at an unnatural angle. Robin unconscious. Chopper trapped in heavy point, grappling with an agent twice his size. The drums began to beat faintly in his mind. "Leave them alone," Luffy growled, his voice deepening slightly. "Your fight is with me." Voss turned to him. "Correct. But the 5 elders' orders were clear. No witnesses to Nika's awakening may survive." The drums grew louder. "I said." Luffy's hair began to show streaks of white. "Leave my nakama alone." The deck beneath Luffy's feet rippled like rubber. Clouds of steam began to form around him, taking strange, cartoonish shapes. Voss recognized what was happening immediately. All agents. Priority target transforming. Execute protocol void immediately. The CP0 agents disengaged from their individual battles and converged on Luffy, moving in perfect unison. Voss raised his staff, which began to glow with ancient symbols. Too late, Luffy grinned, his teeth seeming to shine in the sunlight. "I can hear them now. The drums of liberation." White steam exploded outward as Luffy's transformation began. His hair turned white, his body glowed, and that wild, joyful smile spread across his face. But something was different this time. The transformation wavered, flickering like a candle in the wind. Luffy's expression shifted between joy and pain as he struggled to maintain it. "Interesting," Voss observed. "You haven't mastered it yet. The awakening in Dressrosa was triggered by extreme circumstance, but you can't control it properly." The CP0 agents struck simultaneously, their attacks converging on Luffy from all directions. Even in his partially transformed state, Luffy moved with incredible fluidity, his body bending impossibly to avoid most strikes. But Voss's staff caught him in the chest, and the ancient symbols flared. Luffy screamed as the transformation began to revert, white hair fading back to black in patches. "The world government has prepared for Nika's return for centuries," Voss stated calmly, pressing his advantage. "Did you think we would be caught unprepared?" Luffy gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain the transformation. "I don't care about your preparations." With a surge of willpower, Luffy pushed back against the staff's effect, his hair flashing white again. He grabbed Voss's arm and, to the director's shock, turned it rubbery, twisting it into a pretzel shape. "What?" Voss's composure cracked for the first time. "I'm learning quick." Luffy laughed, the joyful sound reverberating with strange harmonics. "Everything can be rubber if I want it to be." Luffy's partially transformed state was unlike his battle with Doflamingo. Less stable, but perhaps more creative as he experimented with his powers. He stretched his leg, wrapping it around 3 agents at once, then used them as a flail to knock away the others. The Straw Hats seized the opportunity. Despite their injuries, they regrouped and counterattacked. Diable Jam, Muton Shot. Sanji ignited his good leg and slammed it into an agent's chest. Three-sword style, Dragon Twister. Zoro created a tornado of slashes that sent 2 agents flying. Firebird Star. Usopp's shot exploded in another agent's face. Frankie managed to reach the Sunny's controls. Coup de burst ready. Luffy, still flickering between normal and transformed states, locked eyes with Voss. "This fight isn't over. But right now, my nakama come first." With that, he stretched his arm back impossibly far, twisting it in spirals before launching it forward. Gomu Gomu no Hydra. His arm split into multiple serpentine attacks, each striking with precision. Voss blocked most with his staff but couldn't stop them all. One caught him squarely in the chest, sending him crashing through the mast. "Now, Frankie." Luffy shouted. Coup de burst. Frankie slammed his hand down on the activation button. The 1,000 Sunny's rear jets ignited with tremendous force, sending the ship rocketing into the sky. The sudden acceleration threw the remaining CP0 agents off balance, and most were flung from the deck. Voss alone managed to maintain his footing, driving his staff into the deck to anchor himself. This changes nothing, Straw Hat. The world government will never stop hunting you now. As the Sunny soared through the air, Luffy's transformation fully reverted, leaving him gasping and exhausted. But he still managed a defiant grin. Tell the world government something from me, he called back. I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Not a god, not a demon, just the freest person in the world. The Sunny reached the apex of its burst and began to descend toward the ocean miles away. Voss disappeared from view, becoming a tiny white speck on the horizon. As they crashed back into the sea with a tremendous splash, the crew collapsed in various states of injury and exhaustion. That, Usopp gasped, was too close. Chopper immediately shifted into doctor mode, rushing to treat the most severely wounded first. Robin. Zoro. Law. Everyone stay still while I check your injuries. Luffy sat heavily on the deck, breathing hard. Sorry, guys. I still can't control it properly. You did enough, Zoro grunted through his pain. We're alive. Law, clutching his wounded shoulder, fixed Luffy with an intense stare. But we won't stay that way unless you master this power quickly. CP0 was just the beginning. Hours later, with everyone's wounds treated and the Sunny safely hidden in the shadow of a small uninhabited island, the crew gathered for a strategy session. We need to understand what we're dealing with, Law began. The world government didn't just send CP0 after a troublesome pirate. They sent them with ancient weapons specifically designed to counter Nika. Which confirms what the legends suggest, Robin added. That Luffy's fruit isn't just any devil fruit. It's something the world government has feared for centuries. But what is it exactly? Nami asked. We keep talking about Nika and gods, but what does that actually mean? Law and Robin exchanged glances before Law sighed. I think it's time we shared what we know. He turned to Luffy. Your devil fruit isn't the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Luffy blinked in confusion. Huh. But I'm made of rubber. You are, Robin confirmed. But that's just one aspect of your fruit's power. Based on what we've seen and the historical records, your fruit is actually the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika. Hito Hito. Chopper perked up. Like mine. But I'm a human reindeer. Law nodded. Different model. Yours is the basic human fruit. Luffy's is the human fruit, model, Nika, the sun god. Silence fell over the crew as they processed this information. So I ate a god fruit? Luffy scratched his head. That doesn't make sense. I've been rubber for years. Gods don't just stretch. According to legend, Robin explained, Nika was known as the sun god, a warrior of liberation who brought laughter and freedom wherever he went. He had the power to fight however he wanted, with his body obeying only his imagination. Which explains what we saw in Dressrosa, Sanji realized. You weren't just stretching, you were manipulating reality itself around you. The Gomu Gomu no Mi was a cover, Law continued. A name given to hide the fruit's true identity. The world government has been trying to erase all knowledge of Nika and the Void Century for 800 years. Luffy frowned, processing this information in his straightforward way. So my fruit has a different name. So what? I'm still me. It's not that simple, Robin said gently. The world government's reaction suggests this fruit is connected to something pivotal in the Void Century, something they've been desperate to keep hidden. The will of D, Law added. Your middle initial. It can't be coincidence that a D carrier awakened this specific fruit. Frankie whistled. No wonder they sent CP0 with those fancy weapons. They're terrified. But what does this mean for us now? Brooke asked, voicing the practical concern. How do we proceed? All eyes turned to Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet. He stared at his hands for a long moment before looking up. Nothing changes, he declared firmly. I'm still gonna be king of the pirates. I'm still Luffy. This power, Nika, God, whatever, it's just another tool to protect my nakama and achieve my dream. His simple clarity broke the tension, bringing smiles to his crew's faces despite their situation. But, Luffy added, suddenly serious again, I need to master this power. Those CP0 guys will be back, probably with friends. We'll need a safe place to train, Zoro noted. Somewhere the world government can't easily reach. And someone who might understand these ancient powers, Robin added thoughtfully. Law considered for a moment. I know a place. An uncharted island near the edge of the New World. It doesn't appear on any log pose or map because it's surrounded by perpetual storms. How do we find it then? Nami asked. Law reached into his pocket and produced a small, strange compass unlike any they'd seen. With this. It's an artifact I acquired during my research into the Void Century. It points to places of ancient power. Why didn't you mention this before? Zoro asked suspiciously. Because it's dangerous, Law replied bluntly. These places were hidden for a reason. But given our situation, we need every advantage we can get. Luffy slammed his fists together with renewed enthusiasm. All right. Secret Mystery Island, here we come. As the crew began preparations to follow Law's strange compass, none of them noticed the tiny Den Mushi hidden in the crow's nest, its eyes open wide, transmitting everything it heard. In Mariewa, the 5 elders received Director Voss's report with grim expressions. The weapon was ineffective, one asked incredulously. Not ineffective, Voss corrected through the Den Mushi. But Straw Hat's transformation is unstable. He can't maintain it consistently yet. The weapon disrupted it significantly. That buys us time, another elder noted. But not much. Once he masters the fruit's true power. He must be eliminated before that happens, the oldest elder declared. Director Voss, you will continue pursuit. We're also deploying Admiral Kizaru to support your operation. An admiral? Voss questioned. Is that wise? The more resources we visibly commit to this, the more attention it draws. The situation has evolved, the first elder explained. Our observer Den Mushi has confirmed our worst fears. They know the fruit's true name and nature. They're seeking an uncharted island of ancient power. Voss fell silent for a moment. I understand. I'll coordinate with Admiral Kizaru upon his arrival. After the transmission ended, the 5 elders sat in troubled silence. It's happening again, one finally said. Just like 800 years ago. The drums of liberation are beating once more. This time we're prepared, another countered. We control the world now. Do we? The oldest questioned. Or have we merely been borrowing time, waiting for the inevitable? Before anyone could answer, the door opened, and Im entered silently, face concealed in shadows as always. The chessboard changes, Im spoke softly. But the game remains the same. Monkey D. Luffy believes he fights for freedom. He doesn't understand that true freedom would mean chaos. What are your orders, Im-sama? Im walked to the window, gazing out at Mariewa spread below. Deploy the Seraphim prototype. If Nika has returned, let us answer with our own gods. Across the world, the ripples from Luffy's awakening continued to spread. In a hidden revolutionary base, Dragon studied reports with intense interest. So the world government's greatest fear has a name, he mused. Nika. Koala, one of his top officers, nodded. According to our sources, they're mobilizing forces unlike anything we've seen before. Not just for Luffy, they're recalling agents from deep cover, abandoning long-term operations. They're preparing for war, Sabo added. Not just against Luffy, but against the very idea he represents. Dragon smiled slightly. My son has always had a gift for disruption. But even I didn't expect this. What do we do? Koala asked. For now, we watch and gather information, Dragon decided. But prepare our forces. If the world government is distracted by Luffy, it creates opportunities for us. And if they capture him? Sabo pressed. Dragon's expression darkened. Then we'll show them why revolutions are born from oppression. Meanwhile, in the new world, red-haired Shanks stood at the bow of his ship, staring into the distance as if he could see Luffy from thousands of miles away. Captain, Ben Beckman approached, newspaper in hand. You don't seem surprised by any of this. Shanks smiled mysteriously. The world's always changing, Ben. Sometimes it just needs a little push. You knew, Beckman realized. About the fruit. When you stole it from that government ship years ago. Let's just say I had my suspicions, Shanks replied enigmatically. Some treasures are worth more than gold, they're worth waiting for the right person to find them. And that person was Luffy? A random kid in a village in East Blue? Shanks laughed. Random? Nothing about Monkey D. Luffy has ever been random. He turned serious. Set course east. It's time we had a conversation with an old friend. Really? Beckman guessed. The Dark King knows more about the Void Century than he's ever admitted, Shanks confirmed. If Joy Boy has returned, Rayleigh will want to bear witness. Back on the Thousand Sunny, Luffy sat on the figurehead, his special seat, staring at the sunset. The events of recent days swirled in his mind, more complex thoughts than he typically entertained. Robin approached quietly, joining him in contemplation. You've been very quiet, Captain, she observed. Thinking's hard, Luffy replied with his usual bluntness, but without his usual cheer. About Nika? Luffy nodded. When I'm in that form, I see things. Memories that aren't mine. A giant straw hat. A kingdom in the sky. A promise I don't remember making. Robin's eyes widened slightly. This was new information, and potentially revolutionary. These could be memories from the Void Century. From Joy Boy himself. Who's Joy Boy? Luffy asked. That name keeps popping into my head, but I don't know who it is. According to what little we know, he was a figure from the Void Century who made a promise to the Ancient Kingdom, Robin explained carefully. Some believe he and Nika might be connected, or even the same entity. Luffy frowned. I don't want to be someone else. I'm Luffy. Robin smiled gently. And you always will be. But perhaps understanding these memories could help you master your power, and uncover the truth the world government has been hiding. Luffy considered this, then grinned suddenly. If these memories help me protect my Nakama and become Pirate King, then bring him on. His simple determination never failed to inspire confidence. Robin nodded, returning to the main deck where the others were gathered around Law's strange compass. The needle's stabilizing, Nami reported. It's pointing northeast. Then that's our heading, Frankie declared, adjusting the helm. As night fell, the Thousand Sunny changed course, sailing toward an island that appeared on no map, a place of ancient power that might hold answers about Luffy's newfound abilities. None of them noticed the small, fast ship following at the very edge of the horizon, its figurehead shaped like a skull wearing a straw hat. On its deck, a man with wild red hair stared ahead intently. The wheel of fate turns again, Shanks murmured. Let's see where it takes us all this time. 3 days later, the Thousand Sunny sailed into waters unlike any the crew had seen before. The sea itself seemed to pulse with energy, sometimes appearing to flow upward in defiance of gravity. The sky alternated between various colors in rapid succession, blue to green to purple and back again. What the hell kind of place is this? Zoro muttered, hand on his swords as he scanned the horizon. Law studied the compass, which now spun wildly. We're getting close. The ancient texts called it Pulsar Island, a place where reality itself grows thin. Nami monitored her own instruments with growing concern. The magnetic fields here are insane. No wonder it doesn't show up on a log pose. Look! Usopp shouted from the crow's nest, pointing ahead. Through the strange, shifting mists, an island appeared. Unlike any conventional landmass, it seemed to flicker in and out of existence, parts of it visible then invisible in rhythmic pulses. It's beating, Robin observed with fascination. Like a heart. Or a drum, Luffy said quietly. As they approached, the island's features became clearer. Ancient ruins covered its surface, temples, statues, and obelisks of a style none of them had seen before. At the center rose a massive structure shaped like a hand reaching toward the sky. The Hand of Liberation, Law identified it. According to legend, it's where Nika first rose to challenge the gods who enslaved humanity. Luffy stared at it, an inexplicable familiarity tugging at him. I've been here before, he whispered, then looked confused. But I haven't. Joy Boy's memories, Robin suggested gently. As the Sunny approached the shore, the sea suddenly erupted behind them. A marine battleship emerged from the depths, a specialized stealth vessel designed to travel underwater. They found us. Usopp screamed in panic. On the battleship's deck, a figure glowed with yellow light. Admiral Kizaru adjusted his sunglasses lazily, but his relaxed posture couldn't hide the seriousness of his mission. My, his voice carried across the water. Straw Hat Luffy. You've caused quite the commotion. The 5 elders themselves interrupted my vacation for this assignment. Beside him stood Director Voss and his CP0 agents, their white suits pristine despite the sea spray. Damn it. Law cursed. They must have tracked us somehow. Frankie quickly checked the ship. Found it. A surveillance den mushy in the crow's nest. Doesn't matter now, Zoro said grimly, unsheathing his swords. They're here. Kizaru raised a finger, light gathering at its tip. I'm afraid your little adventure ends here, Straw Hat. Nothing personal, you understand. Just following orders to eliminate a global threat. Everyone get to the island. Luffy shouted, stepping forward to face the Admiral. I'll handle this. Luffy, that's Kizaru. Nami protested. He's an admiral. I know, Luffy replied, cracking his knuckles. Perfect chance to test out my new power, right? Before anyone could argue further, Kizaru fired a beam of light that pierced through Luffy's shoulder at the speed of light. Gah! Luffy stumbled but remained standing. Luffy, his nakama cried out in unison. Go! Luffy ordered, straightening up despite the smoking hole in his shoulder. Get to the ruins. Find out what you can about this power. Kizaru appeared directly in front of Luffy in a flash of light, his leg already swinging in a devastating kick. Thinking you can face an admiral alone? How reckless. The kick connected with Luffy's chest, sending him crashing through the Sunny's mast. Frankie! Get everyone to shore. Zoro commanded, jumping forward to stand with Luffy. We'll buy you time. I'm staying too, Sanji declared, flames igniting around his leg. Law stepped forward as well, Nodachi drawn. This isn't just your fight anymore. Luffy struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his mouth. Guys! Shut up, Zoro growled. Save your strength for your transformation. We'll handle the small fry. As if on cue, the CP0 agents leaped from the battleship, landing on the Sunnies. Deck in perfect formation. Go! Sanji shouted to the others. We've got this. Frankie hesitated only briefly before nodding. Minnie Mary, now. He activated the smaller vessel stored within the Sunny, which deployed rapidly. Robin, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, and Brook boarded the Mini Mary, while Frankie stayed to maneuver the Sunny. "Be careful," Nami called back as the Mini Mary sped toward shore. Kizaru watched them go with mild interest. Running away? How disappointing. He raised his hand toward the escaping vessel. "Your fight is with us," Luffy growled, stepping between Kizaru and his fleeing nakama. The Admiral smiled thinly. "Very well. I suppose the others can wait their turn." What followed was a battle of terrifying intensity. Kizaru moved at the speed of light, appearing and disappearing around the deck, his kicks and punches empowered by both Haki and his light abilities. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Law fought with everything they had, but it was immediately clear they were outmatched. The CP0 agents were hardly less dangerous, their enhanced abilities making them deadly opponents even for experienced fighters like Zoro and Sanji. Luffy tried repeatedly to trigger his transformation, concentrating on the drums he'd heard before. Occasionally, flickers of white appeared in his hair, but the transformation remained frustratingly out of reach. "Come on," he urged himself, dodging another of Kizaru's light beams. "Work already. Having trouble with your new power?" Kizaru mocked, moving faster than the eye could track. "The world government knows more about it than you do, Straw Hat." Luffy gritted his teeth. "Then why are you so scared of it?" This struck a nerve. Kizaru's perpetually lazy expression hardened for a split second, and his next attack carried far more force than before, sending Luffy crashing through the ship's railing. "The world government does not fear pirates," Kizaru stated flatly, all pretense of casual indifference gone. "We maintain order. The power you've stumbled upon threatens that order." "Good." Luffy spat blood and grinned defiantly. "Your order sucks anyway." Across the deck, Zoro fought two CP0 agents simultaneously, his three swords moving in perfect harmony. Despite his skill, he was accumulating wounds at an alarming rate. "These guys are on another level," he grunted, blocking a strike that would have severed his spine. Sanji battled his own opponents, his flaming kicks keeping them at bay but unable to land decisive blows. "They've been enhanced somehow. Their bodies don't react normally to damage." Law's room expanded across the ship, but Director Voss countered it with his ancient staff, the symbols glowing as they disrupted Law's power. "The world government has had centuries to prepare for this day," Voss stated calmly. "Did you truly believe we wouldn't have countermeasures for all devil fruit abilities?" As the battle raged on, the Sunny drifted closer to the island's shore. On the beach, Robin and the others had reached land and watched the battle with growing horror. "We need to help them," Chopper cried, preparing to transform. Robin placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. "We have our mission. Find information about Nika that might help Luffy control his power." "But they're going to die," Usopp protested, his sniper rifle already aimed at the battleship. "Luffy ordered us to find answers," Robin reminded them firmly. "That's how we help them most right now." Reluctantly, they turned toward the ruins, following a path that led to the massive hand-shaped structure at the island's center. Back on the Sunny, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Law lay unconscious, defeated by Voss's mysterious weapon. Sanji's right leg had been broken in 3 places. Zoro continued fighting despite a deep wound across his chest. And Luffy, despite his determination, found himself overwhelmed by Kizaru's relentless assault. Disappointing, Kizaru sighed, standing over Luffy's battered form. "I expected more from the so-called Sun God." Luffy struggled to rise, his body trembling with exhaustion and pain. "I'm not done yet." "I'm afraid you are," Kizaru replied, light gathering at his fingertip for a killing blow. "Any last words, Straw Hat?" Luffy looked past Kizaru to where his nakama fought desperately against impossible odds. Zoro taking a blade through his shoulder rather than yield. Sanji fighting on his broken leg, refusing to back down. Frankie shielding Law's unconscious body with his own. The drums began to beat in his mind, louder than before. Yeah, Luffy answered, a strange calm settling over him. I do have something to say. The deck beneath him began to ripple like rubber. The air around him wavered as if seen through heat distortion. You can beat me up all you want, Luffy continued, his voice deepening, taking on harmonics that seemed to resonate with the island itself. But you made one big mistake. Oh. Kizaru raised an eyebrow, his finger still glowing with deadly light. And what's that? Luffy's hair began to turn white, starting from the roots and spreading outward. His eyes gleamed with an inner light. That wild, joyful grin spread across his face. You threatened my Nakama, Luffy answered, his transformation accelerating. On an island that remembers who I was. The drumbeats grew deafening, not just in Luffy's mind but audible to everyone present. The island itself pulsed in rhythm with them, the ruins glowing with ancient power. Kizaru's eyes widened in genuine alarm. Director Voss. He's transforming. Use the weapon. Voss rushed forward, ancient staff raised, but he was too late. With a sound like joyous laughter amplified 1,000-fold, Luffy's transformation completed. White hair flowing, body glowing. With inner light, he rose to his feet with fluid grace that defied his previous injuries. Gear 5th. Luffy announced, though the name seemed almost inadequate for what he had become. Nika. Kizaru fired his light beam directly at Luffy's heart, only for the light to bend around him, redirecting into a spiral that danced harmlessly away. What? Kizaru couldn't hide his shock. Luffy laughed, the sound carrying across the entire island. Even light can be bent if you're rubber enough. With speed that made even Kizaru seem slow, Luffy moved. His arm stretched impossibly, growing massive as it wound up for an attack. Gomu Gomu no. Sunrise. The gigantic fist slammed into Kizaru with such force that it created a shockwave visible from miles away. The Admiral, one of the world government's ultimate weapons, was sent flying across the ocean, eventually crashing into his own battleship with catastrophic results. The vessel cracked in half from the impact, Marines scrambling for lifeboats as it began to sink. Director Voss stared in disbelief. Impossible. No one defeats an admiral so easily. Luffy turned to him, still grinning that wild, joyous grin. Nothing's impossible anymore. That's kind of the point. The remaining CP0 agents converged on Luffy, moving with perfect coordination. Luffy didn't even bother dodging. Their attack simply bounced off him, or passed through him as his body morphed like a cartoon character's. My turn, Luffy announced cheerfully. What followed wasn't so much a battle as a demonstration. Luffy moved with impossible fluidity, his attacks limited only by his imagination. He turned the very air into rubber, causing the agent's movements to bounce and distort. He inflated his fist to the size of a small house, then shrunk it to normal size while maintaining its mass, creating an attack of devastating density. Throughout it all, he laughed, not with cruelty but with pure joy, as if combat itself had become a game. Within minutes, the CP0 agents lay defeated. Only Director Voss remained standing, his ancient weapon raised defensively. This changes nothing, Voss declared, though his voice lacked conviction. The world government will send others. We have resources you cannot imagine. Probably, Luffy agreed, his voice reverberating with strange harmonics. But that's a problem for another day. With that, he simply poked Voss in the forehead, a gentle tap that somehow sent the CP0 director flying backward, crashing through multiple walls before landing unconscious on the beach. The transformation began to fade, Luffy's hair gradually returning to black. He swayed on his feet, then collapsed to his knees, utterly exhausted but triumphant. Zoro limped to his side, bloodied but grinning fiercely. Not bad, Captain. Thanks, Luffy managed weakly. I think I'm getting the hang of it. Sanji dragged himself over, using a piece of broken mast as a crutch. You certainly know how to make an entrance. Frankie carried the unconscious Law, shaking his head in amazement. That was super, Straw Hat. Before they could celebrate further, a shout from the shore caught their attention. Guys! Usopp's voice carried across the water. You need to see this. In the heart of the island, beneath the massive hand-shaped structure, Robin, Nami, Chopper, Brook, and Usopp had discovered something extraordinary, a chamber filled with ancient writings and, at its center, a stone tablet unlike any they'd seen before. It's not a poneglyph, Robin explained, her fingers tracing the strange symbols. It's older. Much older. Can you read it? Nami asked. Robin nodded slowly. Parts of it. It appears to be instructions. Instructions for what? Brook questioned. For the next Joy Boy, Robin answered, her voice filled with awe. For how to use the power of Nika. The chamber walls were covered in murals depicting a figure with flowing white hair bringing freedom to enslaved peoples, challenging godlike entities, and reshaping reality itself. In one scene, the figure stood atop a massive red stone, a road poneglyph, though depicted as new rather than ancient. According to this, Robin continued, the fruit doesn't just grant rubber powers. That's merely its dormant state. When awakened, it allows the user to embody Nika, the warrior god of liberation whose body and surroundings work according to his imagination. That explains why Luffy could affect things that weren't his body, Chopper realized. He was changing the properties of reality itself. There's more, Robin said gravely. It speaks of a promise made during what we now call the Void Century. A promise that the next bearer of this power would bring the dawn and challenge the false gods who emptied the throne. The empty throne, Nami whispered. In Mary Geos. Robin nodded. This isn't just about a powerful devil fruit. It's about the very foundations of the world government itself. A voice from the chamber entrance interrupted them. Now you understand why they fear him so much. They turned to see Shanks standing there, his expression unreadable. Red hair Shanks. Usopp exclaimed. How did you? I've been following you since Dressrosa, Shanks explained, stepping into the chamber. I needed to see if the rumors were true. If Luffy had truly awakened the power of Nika. You knew, Robin accused. All along. The fruit you stole from the world government ship, you knew what it really was. Shanks didn't deny it. Roger discovered many truths during his final voyage. Before he disbanded our crew, he entrusted certain knowledge to those he trusted most. Rayleigh. Scopper. Me. So you deliberately let Luffy eat it? Nami asked, anger edging her voice. No, Shanks shook his head. That was chance, or fate, if you prefer. But once it happened. He smiled slightly. Let's just say I recognized the potential. You used him, Chopper said, uncharacteristically harsh. I believed in him, Shanks corrected. There's a difference. Before the conversation could continue, the sound of footsteps announced the arrival of Luffy and the others, battered but alive. Luffy froze when he saw Shanks, his eyes widening. Shanks. What are you doing here? Shanks smiled at his former protege. Watching history repeat itself, Luffy. Or perhaps rewrite itself this time. As Kizaru regained consciousness on a piece of his destroyed battleship, he reached for his den mushi, grimacing in pain. Injuries that would have killed a normal man merely inconvenienced an admiral, but even he felt the effects of Luffy's devastating attack. This is Admiral Kizaru, he reported. Mission failed. Straw Hat has fully awakened the power of Nika. Request permission to implement protocol extinction. The reply came not from the 5 elders but from him personally, the first time Kizaru had ever heard the mysterious ruler's voice. Permission granted, came the cold response. Deploy the Seraphim. Pulsar Island is to be removed from existence. Kizaru's perpetually lazy expression hardened into something genuinely serious. Understood. May the light of destruction cleanse this heresy. As he activated a special beacon on his wrist, Kizaru gazed toward the island where Monkey D, Luffy and his crew, along with Red Hair Shanks, were about to learn the truth about Joy Boy, Nika, and the Void Century. The game truly begins now, Kizaru murmured. Let's see if the Sun God can withstand the judgment of heaven itself. Chapter 3, The Sun God Rises. The ancient chamber beneath the hand of liberation fell silent as Luffy and Shanks stared at each other. Years had passed since they'd last met, and now they stood face to face amid ruins that predated the world government itself. Seriously, what are you doing here? Luffy repeated, his voice a mixture of confusion and excitement. Shanks smiled that enigmatic smile of his. I came to see if the rumors were true. If the boy I bet my arm on had really awakened the power that terrifies the world government more than anything else. You knew, Zoro accused, stepping forward despite his injuries. About Luffy's fruit. About Nika. I suspected, Shanks corrected. Roger discovered many things during his final journey, things the world government has spent centuries trying to erase. Luffy scratched his head. So my fruit isn't really the Gomu Gomu no Mi? No, Robin answered, gesturing to the ancient murals covering the chamber walls. According to these inscriptions, you ate the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika, the mythical Zoan fruit of the Sun God. The Liberator, Shanks added. The warrior of freedom who brings laughter and turns the world upside down. Luffy stared at the murals, white-haired figures dancing across stone, battling oppressors, freeing slaves. Something deep inside him resonated with these images. This is why they're so afraid, Law realized, leaning heavily against Frankie for support. It's not just about a powerful devil fruit. It's about what it represents. Yeah, Luffy said, unusually thoughtful. When I transform, I feel it, like I've done this before, like I'm remembering something instead of learning something new. Robin approached one particular mural, her fingers tracing ancient symbols. This section tells of the promise made by Joy Boy during the Void Century, a promise to return when the drums beat again and challenge those who emptied the throne. The empty throne in Mary Geos, Nami whispered. Shanks nodded grimly. The symbol of a world order built on lies and slavery. The very thing Nika was said to have fought against. Luffy frowned, processing this information in his straightforward way. So basically, I ate a super important fruit that belonged to some ancient god guy, and now the world government wants to kill me even more than before. That's an oversimplification, but essentially correct, Robin admitted. Luffy grinned suddenly. Cool. Sounds like an adventure to me. His nakama couldn't help but smile despite their dire situation. Even faced with world-changing revelations, Luffy remained fundamentally Luffy. There's more, Robin continued, moving to a circular stone tablet at the chamber's center. This appears to be instructions, techniques for controlling the power of Nika. Luffy perked up instantly. Really? Like a training manual? In a sense, Robin confirmed. It describes the power as limited only by imagination, but warns that the body of a mortal can only channel divinity briefly. That explains why I can't maintain the transformation, Luffy realized. It's too much power. But with training, Shanks interjected, you could extend that time. Master the transformation rather than being overwhelmed by it. Luffy punched his palm with excitement. Then let's start training. Before anyone could respond, a tremendous explosion rocked the island. The chamber shook, dust and small stones raining from the ceiling. What the hell was that? Usopp cried. Sanji's observation haki flared in warning. Something's coming. Something big. Kizaru, Zoro growled. He's back already. Not just Kizaru, Shanks said grimly, his hand moving to his sword. They've deployed it already. Deployed what? Frankie demanded. As if in answer, the ceiling exploded inward. Through the dust and debris, a figure descended, humanoid but clearly not human. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, it resembled a child grown to impossible proportions, with blank white eyes and metallic, feathered wings. A seraphim, Shanks whispered. So the rumors were true. The creature surveyed them emotionlessly, then spoke in a voice both childlike and ancient. Target identified, Monkey D. Luffy, bearer of Nika's power. All witnesses to be eliminated. What the hell is that thing? Zoro demanded, raising his swords despite his injuries. The world government's newest weapon, Law answered, eyes wide with recognition. Created from the DNA of Lunarians and, something else. The seraphim raised its hand, and flames identical to King's erupted around it. Before anyone could react, it moved with blinding speed, crossing the chamber in an instant and slamming its fist toward Luffy. Shanks intercepted, his sword clashing with the creature's arm. The impact created a shockwave that cracked the chamber walls. Get Luffy out of here. Shanks ordered, struggling against the Seraphim's inhuman strength. He needs to master Nika's power. I'm not running. Luffy protested. And I'm not leaving you to fight alone. This isn't about pride, Luffy. Shanks shot back. The Seraphim was created specifically to counter devil fruit users. You need time to understand your power first. Another explosion rocked the island, and a second hole opened in the ceiling. Through it, Admiral Kizaru descended, his body glowing with deadly light. My, he drawled. Quite the gathering of infamous pirates. The 5 elders will be pleased when I report the elimination of both Straw Hat Luffy and Red Hair Shanks. The situation had deteriorated from dangerous to catastrophic in seconds. Even at full strength, facing both Kizaru and the mysterious Seraphim would be nearly impossible. In their injured state, Robin stepped forward decisively. Captain, I've memorized the tablet's instructions. If you can buy us time to reach the hand itself, there's a ritual chamber there that might help you fully awaken Nika's power. Luffy looked torn, glancing between his injured Nakama, Shanks fighting the Seraphim, and Kizaru preparing to attack. Go, Luffy, Zoro said firmly, stepping forward with all 3 swords drawn despite his wounds. We'll handle things here. But, Captain's orders work both ways sometimes, Sanji added, igniting his leg despite his injuries. Trust your crew. One by one, the Straw Hats positioned themselves between Luffy and the threats, Zoro and Sanji facing Kizaru, Frankie and Brook moving to assist Shanks against the Seraphim, Chopper transforming into Monster Point despite the chamber's limited space. You guys. Luffy began, emotion thick in his voice. We believe in you, Luffy, Nami said simply. Now go become the sun god for real. Luffy nodded, determination replacing hesitation. Let's go, Robin. I'll help too, Law declared, creating a room despite his exhaustion. Shambles. In an instant, Law teleported himself, Robin, Luffy, and Usopp through one of the holes in the ceiling, toward the massive hand-shaped structure above. Your Straw Hat sentimentality is touching, Kizaru commented dryly, but futile. He raised a finger glowing with light, aiming at the escaping group. Your fight is with us. Zoro roared, launching himself at the Admiral with all 3 swords flashing. Kizaru sighed as he casually redirected his attack toward Zoro. How tiresome. The battle erupted in full force. Zoro and Sanji fought with everything they had against Kizaru, while Shanks, Frankie, Brook, Chopper, and Nami confronted the monstrous Seraphim. Despite their combined strength, both enemies proved devastatingly powerful. The Seraphim moved with impossible speed for its size, its attacks carrying both the Lunarian fire abilities and something else, a strange energy that seemed to weaken Devil Fruit users upon contact. Its attacks nullified Devil Fruit powers temporarily. Shanks warned as Chopper suddenly shrank from Monster Point back to his small form after taking a hit. Kizaru, meanwhile, was toying with Zoro and Sanji, his light-speed movements making him nearly impossible to hit. Only Zoro's advanced observation haki allowed him to occasionally predict where the Admiral would appear. "You're delaying the inevitable," Kizaru remarked, casually dodging Sanji's diable jam kick. "Even if Straw Hat completes the ritual, it won't save him. The world government has prepared for this possibility for 800 years. "You talk too much," Zoro growled, channeling more haki into his blades. Three-sword style, Dragon Blaze. The flaming attack actually forced Kizaru to solidify and block, buying precious seconds for Luffy and the others. Outside the chamber, racing toward the Hand of Liberation, Luffy felt the battle raging behind them. "We need to hurry. Everyone's fighting with everything they have." "The ritual chamber should be inside the palm of the hand," Robin explained as they climbed. "According to the tablet, it's where the original Nika transformed for the first time. Law transported them higher with strategic use of shambles, conserving his strength for when it would be most needed." "What exactly is this ritual supposed to do?" Usopp asked, panting as they climbed. "If I understood correctly," Robin replied, "it doesn't grant new powers so much as unlock Luffy's understanding of what he already possesses. The tablet said, to become Nika, one must first remember being Nika." Luffy frowned. "But I've never been Nika before." "Perhaps Joy Boy was," Robin suggested. "And the memories are stored somehow in the fruit itself." They reached the massive stone fingers of the hand structure, climbing between them toward the palm high above. As they ascended, more explosions echoed from below, the battle intensifying. "I hope they're okay," Usopp worried, glancing back. "Focus," Law urged. "The sooner Luffy masters this power, the sooner he can help them." Finally, they reached the palm, a massive circular platform with intricate designs carved into the stone. At its center stood a small pedestal with a hand-shaped impression. "This is it," Robin confirmed, examining the ancient symbols. "The awakening circle." "What do I do?" Luffy asked, uncharacteristically serious. "Place your hand on the pedestal," Robin instructed. "According to the tablet, it will reunite the scattered self across time." Luffy approached the pedestal cautiously. As he reached for it, the drums began to beat faintly in his mind again. "I can hear them," he whispered. "The drums." "The drums of liberation," Robin nodded. The tablet mentioned them. "They're said to be the heartbeat of freedom itself." Luffy placed his hand in the impression. Instantly, the carvings across the entire platform illuminated with golden light. The drumbeats grew louder, no longer just in Luffy's mind but audible to everyone. "It's working!" Usopp exclaimed. Suddenly, Luffy gasped, his body going rigid. His eyes glowed with the same golden light as the platform. "Luffy!" Law called out in alarm. "Don't interfere," Robin warned, holding him back. "This is part of the process." Within Luffy's mind, something extraordinary happened. He found himself no longer on Pulsar Island but standing in a vast, empty white space. Before him stood a figure with flowing white hair, a wild grin, and a body that seemed to flow and shift like living rubber. "Who are you?" Luffy asked, though somehow he already knew. "I'm you," the figure answered with a laugh that sounded exactly like Luffy's own. "Or you're me. Or we're both someone else. It gets confusing after a few centuries." "You're Nika," Luffy realized. "And Joy Boy, and others before him," the figure confirmed. "The names change, but the purpose remains." He gestured around them. "Do you know why your fruit was renamed? Why the world government hid its true nature?" Luffy shook his head. "Because names have power," Nika explained. "The name, Gomu Gomu no Mi, limits understanding. It makes users think they're just rubber people, when in truth, there's so much more." "What am I, then?" Luffy asked. Nika's grin widened impossibly. "You're the embodiment of freedom itself. The warrior who brings joy through liberation." The one who turns the world upside down and makes the impossible possible. As he spoke, images flashed around them, memories from previous users. A giant straw hat. An ancient kingdom with technology centuries ahead of its time. A terrible betrayal. 20 kings uniting against a single threat. A promise made to the moon. This is the void century, Luffy whispered in awe. The truth they erased, Nika confirmed. The history they feared would bring down their perfect system. But why show me? I just want to be Pirate King, not some revolutionary or whatever. Nika laughed again. Don't you see? That's exactly why the fruit chose you. Your dream of absolute freedom, to be the freest person in the world, it resonates perfectly with Nika's purpose. The fruit chose me? Luffy repeated, confused. Devil fruits aren't just magical objects, Luffy. The most powerful ones have wills of their own. When Shanks stole the Hito Hito no Mi model, Nika from that world government ship, it was no accident that it ended up with you. The implications staggered Luffy. His entire journey, from that first bite of the strange fruit in Fusha village, had been part of something much larger than himself. I don't want to be some legendary figure or reincarnation, Luffy said firmly. I want to be me. Just Luffy. And that, Nika replied with approval, is exactly why you're perfect for this power. You don't seek godhood or control, you seek freedom. For yourself and others. The white-haired figure stepped closer. I'm not here to replace you, Luffy. I'm here to fully awaken what's already inside you. To help you understand what you can truly do with this power. Then teach me, Luffy decided, his characteristic determination returning. My Nakama are fighting right now to give me this chance. I need to master this power to protect them. Nika's expression turned serious for the first time. Be warned, full understanding comes with great responsibility. Once you know the truth, you cannot unknow it. The world government will stop at nothing to destroy you. Luffy grinned fiercely. They've been trying to do that since Logue Town. Nothing new there. Nika laughed once more, the sound joyous and free. Then let's begin. The first step to mastering Nika's power is understanding that rubber is just the simplest expression of your true ability. Which is reality manipulation, Nika explained. Or more specifically, the freedom to ignore reality's rules. You can make your body follow cartoon physics instead of real physics. Like when I grabbed the air itself during my fight with Mingo. Exactly. But that was just the beginning. You can apply rubber properties or cartoon physics to anything you touch or even see. You can stretch space itself, bounce energy back at attackers, inflate parts of your body while maintaining their mass. As Nika continued explaining, demonstrating impossible techniques with his fluid body, Luffy watched in growing excitement. This wasn't just a power upgrade, it was a completely different understanding of what his abilities could do. The key limitation, Nika warned, is your imagination and your body's stamina. Even with training, maintaining the full transformation will drain you quickly. You must use it strategically. Got it, Luffy nodded. So how do I activate it properly? So far it only happens when I'm super desperate. The drums of liberation must be heard, Nika answered. Not just by your ears, but by your heart. They're the rhythm of freedom itself. Nika placed his hand on Luffy's chest. Listen to them now. Really listen. They've always been beating inside you. Luffy closed his eyes, focusing inward. Beneath the surface of his consciousness, he could hear them, steady, joyful drums that seemed to match his heartbeat yet existed independently. I hear them, he whispered. Now, Nika instructed, let them synchronize with your heartbeat. Let your pulse become the drums of liberation. As Luffy focused, something incredible happened. The drums grew louder, clearer, until they weren't separate from him at all, they were him, his very essence beating in rhythm with an ancient power. That's it. Nika exclaimed. You're doing it. Luffy felt energy surging through him, different from his previous transformations. Not the increased blood flow of Gear 2nd or the inflated muscle of Gear 4th, but something more fundamental, a change in the very nature of his existence. Remember, Nika said, his form beginning to fade, this power isn't about destruction. It's about liberation. About bringing joy and freedom. Use it well, Monkey D. Luffy. Wait. Luffy called as Nika's form dispersed like mist. I still have questions. All the answers are already inside you, Nika's voice echoed. Trust your instincts. Trust your nakama. And most importantly, trust the rhythm of the drums. The white space dissolved, and Luffy found himself back on the stone hand, his own hand still pressed against the pedestal. But everything looked different now, colors more vibrant, edges less fixed, possibilities swirling in the air itself. Luffy? Usopp's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you okay? You've been standing there frozen for like 5 minutes. Luffy turned to his friends, a wild grin spreading across his face. His hair had already turned white, his body glowing with inner light. Never better, he answered, his voice carrying strange harmonics. I understand now. The ritual worked? Robin asked, her eyes wide with academic excitement. Yeah, Luffy nodded, examining his transformed hand with interest. It's weird, but it makes sense now. My body can work however I want it to work. As if to demonstrate, he stretched his arm, but not in his usual way. This time, it looped in impossible spirals, tied itself in a knot, then returned to normal without passing through the intervening space. Fascinating, Robin breathed. Great, you've got control of your powers, Law interrupted urgently. Now we need to. He was cut off by a massive explosion from below. The entire hand structure shook violently. They're losing, Law realized grimly. The Seraphim and Kizaru are overwhelming them. Luffy's expression turned serious, though the wild grin remained. Then it's time to even the odds. Without waiting for a response, Luffy jumped from the platform, diving headfirst toward the battle below. But he didn't fall normally, his body seemed to bounce through the air itself, each movement defying physics in a new and impossible way. As he approached the chamber where his nakama fought desperately, Luffy called out, "Hey, light bulb. Looking for me?" Kizaru glanced up, momentarily distracted from his systematic dismantling of Zoro and Sanji. His perpetually lazy expression shifted to one of genuine concern when he saw Luffy's fully transformed state. So the ritual succeeded, the Admiral observed. Unfortunate, but not unexpected. The Seraphim also turned its blank gaze upward, immediately identifying Luffy as its primary target. With a powerful thrust of its wings, it abandoned its battle with Shanks and the others, shooting upward toward Luffy. Luffy! Watch out! Nami screamed. But Luffy wasn't worried. As the Seraphim reached him, moving at incredible speed with its fist cocked back for a devastating blow, Luffy simply stepped sideways in midair. Not dodged, literally stepped on solid air as if gravity was merely a suggestion. That's new, Zoro commented through bloodied teeth. The Seraphim's momentum carried it past Luffy, who casually reached out and tapped its back. Instantly, the creature's wings turned rubbery and floppy, causing it to lose control and crash into the chamber wall. I don't want to fight you, Luffy told the creature as it extracted itself from the rubble. You didn't ask to be created as a weapon. The Seraphim's blank expression didn't change. Target acquired, Sun God Nika. Elimination protocol engaged. It attacked again, this time unleashing a blast of Lunarian fire. Luffy didn't dodge or block, he caught the flames in his hands like they were solid objects, rolled them into a ball, and casually tossed them aside. Fire doesn't have to burn if I don't want it to, Luffy explained, seemingly to himself. That's how this power works. Reality is flexible. The casual neutralization of its primary attack visibly confused the Seraphim. It paused, recalculating its approach. Kizaru decided to intervene. Fascinating as this demonstration is, my orders remain clear. He raised his finger, gathering light. I'll just have to use my full power from the start. Alma no Murakumo, Kizaru intoned, forming a sword of pure light so bright it hurt to look at directly. This blade has severed mountains. Let's see how your rubber body handles it. He moved at light speed, appearing behind Luffy with the sword already swinging toward his neck. To everyone's shock, the blade passed directly through Luffy, like cutting through air. What? Kizaru couldn't hide his surprise. Luffy turned, still grinning. Sorry, I decided to be intangible for a second there. Neat trick, huh? For the first time, genuine alarm showed on Kizaru's face. This wasn't just an awakened devil fruit, it was something beyond his experience. The reports from Dressrosa didn't prepare us for this, the Admiral muttered. Yeah, I wasn't really sure what I was doing back then, Luffy admitted casually. But now I get it. Watch this. Luffy inhaled deeply, his chest expanding to impossible proportions. When he exhaled, it wasn't air that came out but a concentrated blast of what looked like cartoon stars and clouds. The strange attack engulfed Kizaru before he could dodge. When it cleared, the Admiral stood frozen, his body turned partially to rubber. What have you done? He struggled to speak, his normally fluid movements now bouncy and awkward. I made you rubbery. Luffy explained cheerfully. Just temporarily, though. Gotta be careful not to change people permanently, that wouldn't be right. The Seraphim attacked again, this time attempting to use its strange power-nullifying ability. It struck Luffy directly in the chest with a glowing palm. Got him! Frankie shouted triumphantly. But instead of losing his transformation, Luffy just looked down at the contact point curiously. That tickles. Are you trying to turn off my devil fruit? That's not how Nika works. He grabbed the Seraphim's arm and, with casual ease, twisted it into a pretzel shape. See, I'm not just using a devil fruit power anymore. I am the power. The Straw Hats watched in amazement as Luffy systematically dismantled both Kizaru and the Seraphim without apparent effort. Not with overwhelming force, but with creative, impossible applications of his abilities. When the Seraphim tried to fly away to regroup, Luffy stretched his arm, caught its foot, and turned the air around it into a rubbery prison that bounced it back to the ground. When Kizaru attempted to reform into light to escape, Luffy somehow grabbed the light itself and tied it in knots. He's not just fighting, Robin observed with academic interest. He's rewriting the rules of reality around him. Shanks watched with a knowing smile. This is the true power of Nika, the ability to bring freedom by breaking the very chains of what's possible. Finally, after thoroughly demonstrating his superiority, Luffy stood between the defeated Kizaru and the malfunctioning Seraphim. Despite the casual ease of his victory, his expression turned serious. Listen up, light bulb. I want you to take a message back to the world government. Kizaru, his body gradually returning to normal as Luffy's effect wore off, glared with uncharacteristic intensity. And why would I do that, Straw Hat? Because I'm letting you leave, Luffy replied simply. I could beat you up more, but what's the point? You were just following orders. The Admiral's eyes narrowed suspiciously. What message? Tell them I know the truth now. About Nika, about Joy Boy, about what they've been hiding. Luffy's voice carried strange harmonics, echoing with power greater than his physical form. Tell them I'm still not interested in their politics or ruling the world or whatever they're afraid of. You expect me to believe that? Kizaru scoffed. Tell them, Luffy continued, ignoring the interruption, that I'm going to become the Pirate King. That's still my dream. But now I understand that freedom isn't just about me, it's about everyone. The chamber fell silent, the weight of Luffy's words settling over them all. So here's the deal, Luffy concluded. They leave my Nakama alone, and I won't go around deliberately messing with their precious world order. But if they keep coming after the people I care about. His grin widened impossibly, his teeth seeming to gleam in the dim light. They'll find out exactly why they've feared the return of Nika for 800 years. Kizaru stared at Luffy for a long moment, calculating. Finally, he adjusted his sunglasses with a sigh. I'll relay your message. But don't expect it to change anything, Straw Hat. The world government doesn't negotiate with pirates. It's not a negotiation, Luffy replied simply. It's just fair warning. With that, he turned his back on the admiral, a gesture of either supreme confidence or reckless disregard. You're letting me leave? Kizaru questioned, clearly suspicious of a trap. Unless you want to go another round? Luffy glanced back with that wild grin. The admiral considered his options, then shook his head slightly. Another time, perhaps. When the odds are more favorable. With a flash of light, Kizaru disappeared, retreating to report this unexpected development to his superiors. The Seraphim remained, its systems apparently damaged by Luffy's reality manipulation. It stood motionless, white eyes staring blankly. What about this thing? Sanji asked, limping forward. Luffy approached the creature curiously. It's not really alive, is it? Not like a normal person. It appears to be some kind of biological weapon, Law observed, having rejoined them with Robin and Usopp. Created from Lunarian DNA and something else. Can you tell what it's thinking? Chopper asked, his doctor's instincts making him curious despite his fear of the thing. Luffy placed his hand on the Seraphim's head, his transformed state apparently allowing him to sense things beyond normal perception. It's confused. It has orders, but no will of its own. He frowned. That's sad. Sad or not, it's incredibly dangerous, Frankie pointed out. It nearly killed us before you showed up. I can fix that, Luffy decided. His hand glowed where it touched the Seraphim's head. There. I rewrote its main directive. The creature's blank eyes flickered, then focused. It looked around at the assembled pirates, then at Luffy. What did you do? Nami asked nervously. Gave it freedom to choose, Luffy explained with a shrug. Seemed like the right thing for the sun god to do. The Seraphim stared at Luffy for a long moment, then spoke in its strange, childlike voice. Primary directive updated, protect freedom. Secondary directive, find purpose. It bowed slightly to Luffy. This unit. I am grateful. Without another word, the creature spread its wings and flew upward, disappearing through the hole in the ceiling. You sure that was wise? Zoro questioned. It could cause problems later. Everyone deserves a chance at freedom, Luffy replied simply. Even weird angel weapon things. The transformed Luffy turned to his injured Nakama, his expression softening with concern. You guys look terrible. Hold still. Before anyone could protest, Luffy stretched his hands, gently touching each of his wounded friends. Where his fingers contacted their injuries, a warm glow spread, and wounds began to close. Since when can you heal people? Chopper exclaimed in amazement. Since about 20 minutes ago, Luffy laughed. Turns out I can make people's bodies work the way they're supposed to, at least temporarily. Healing is just helping your body remember its right shape. As the Straw Hats recovered from their injuries, marveling at Luffy's new abilities, Shanks watched with a thoughtful expression. You've surpassed my expectations, Luffy, he said finally. Roger would be proud. Luffy turned to his former mentor, his wild grin softening. Thanks for believing in me, Shanks. Did you know all this would happen when you saved me from that Sea King? Let's just say I recognized potential when I saw it, Shanks replied enigmatically. The Straw Hat chose you as much as I did. Speaking of which, Robin interjected, the ancient murals showed Joy Boy wearing a giant straw hat. Is there a connection to Luffy's hat? Shanks' expression revealed nothing. Some questions are better answered in their own time. Before the conversation could continue, the island shuddered violently, massive cracks appearing in the chamber walls. "What's happening now?" Usopp cried. Law's expression turned grave. Pulsar Island exists partially outside normal reality. With the ritual activated and so much power being used, its connection to our world is destabilizing. In normal people words, Nami demanded. "The island is collapsing," Shanks translated. "We need to leave immediately." "To the Sunny," Luffy ordered. "And Shanks, you should get back to your ship too." "Don't worry about me," Shanks smiled. "I didn't come unprepared." As if on cue, the Red Force appeared on the horizon, approaching at impossible speed for a ship its size. "Your crew was nearby this whole time?" Zoro questioned suspiciously. "Of course," Shanks replied. "I'd never approach a situation like this without backup." Another violent tremor rocked the island, larger pieces of ceiling now crashing down around them. "Less talking, more running," Frankie shouted, already heading for the exit. They raced through the collapsing ruins, Luffy using his transformed state to create rubbery bridges across gaps and shield his nakama from falling debris. Despite the chaos, he seemed completely in control, moving with fluid grace and laughing joyously at particularly close calls. "He's actually enjoying this," Usopp realized, half terrified and half amazed. "That's part of Nika's nature," Robin explained as they ran. "Joy in the face of adversity. Freedom in the midst of destruction." They reached the shore just as massive sections of the island began sinking into the sea. The Thousand Sunny waited, somehow undamaged despite the earlier battle. "All aboard!" Frankie bellowed, leaping to the helm. As the crew scrambled onto their ship, Luffy paused at the shoreline, turning back to the disintegrating island with an unreadable expression. "Luffy! We need to go," Nami called urgently. "Just a second," he replied, his voice echoing strangely. He raised his hands toward the island, white energy flowing from his fingertips. "I can't let this knowledge disappear again." To everyone's amazement, portions of the stone tablets and murals from the chamber rose from the ruins, floating through the air to land gently on the Sunny's deck. "How did you?" Robin began, staring at the preserved historical artifacts in disbelief. "I asked nicely, and they came," Luffy explained with a laugh. "That's how Nika works." He jumped aboard, landing lightly despite the distance. As he did, his transformation began to fade, white hair returning to black, the glow subsiding. He staggered slightly, catching himself on the railing. "Whoa," he muttered. "That takes a lot out of you." "Coup de burst," Frankie shouted, activating the Sunny's escape system. The ship rocketed away from the disintegrating island, the Red Force keeping pace alongside them. Behind them, Pulsar Island collapsed in on itself, creating a swirling vortex that briefly distorted the very fabric of reality before disappearing entirely, leaving only open ocean where the ancient site had stood. "It's gone," Chopper whispered. "Like it never existed." "Not entirely," Robin corrected, already examining the stone fragments Luffy had saved. "Thanks to our captain, we've preserved crucial knowledge." Luffy, now fully reverted to his normal state, sat heavily on the deck, his energy depleted but his spirit undimmed. "That was awesome. Did you guys see how I bounced that light beam back at Kizaru? And when I turned the Seraphim's wings to rubber? So cool." His nakama couldn't help but laugh at his childlike enthusiasm despite the apocalyptic situation they just escaped. "Only you would describe facing an admiral and a biological weapon as awesome," Nami sighed, but her smile betrayed her fondness. As the two ships sailed side by side away from where Pulsar Island had been, Shanks called across to Luffy. "This is where we part ways again, Luffy. You're not coming with us?" Luffy asked, sounding slightly disappointed. Shanks shook his head. "My crew and I have our own path to follow. But something tells me we'll meet again before your journey ends." Next time, Luffy called back with determination, I'll have an even stronger crew and be even closer to becoming Pirate King. I'm counting on it. Shanks laughed. Before turning away, he added more seriously, remember, Luffy, with Nika's power comes great responsibility. The world government won't stop hunting you now. Let them try. Luffy replied confidently. We'll handle whatever comes our way. The Red Force began to pull away, Shanks raising his single arm in farewell. Until we meet again, Sun God. See ya, Shanks. Luffy shouted, waving enthusiastically until the Red Force disappeared over the horizon. As evening fell, the Straw Hats gathered on deck, processing the day's events. Robin studied the ancient artifacts with scholarly intensity, occasionally making notes. Chopper checked everyone for lingering injuries despite Luffy's miraculous healing. The others rested, ate, or assisted where needed. Law, who had remained aboard, approached Luffy at the figurehead. That's quite the power you've awakened. Luffy grinned. Yeah. It's pretty cool, right? It's more than cool, Law replied seriously. It's revolutionary. The world government's worst nightmare made manifest. You worried? Luffy asked perceptively. Law considered the question. Not worried. Recalculating. Our alliance just became significantly more valuable, and more dangerous. Nothing's changed for me, Luffy shrugged. I'm still gonna be Pirate King. I'm still gonna help my friends. I just have a cooler rubber power now. Law couldn't help but smile slightly at Luffy's straightforward perspective. The world government is mobilizing everything they have against you. I intercepted communications while you were in the ritual chamber. They're calling it Extinction Protocol. Sounds serious, Luffy acknowledged, surprisingly calm. It is serious. They'll send everything, admirals, CP0, the Seraphim, possibly even the Gorosei themselves. Luffy just grinned wider. Good. That means they'll be too busy with me to bother other people. Law stared at him in disbelief, then chuckled despite himself. You're impossible, Straw Hat. Nah, just improbable. Luffy laughed. That's what Nika showed me, nothing's really impossible if you can bend reality. As they spoke, Robin approached with her findings. Captain, I've translated portions of the tablets. They contain instructions for controlling your transformation, extending its duration, and even using aspects of Nika's power without fully transforming. Luffy perked up at this. You mean I could do some of the cool stuff without going full white hair mode? That would be super useful. Exactly, Robin confirmed. It describes techniques for partial awakening that are less taxing on the body. Then that's what I'll practice. Luffy decided enthusiastically. I need to master this power properly. Next time we face someone like Kizaru, I want to be ready. Law exchanged glances with Robin, both recognizing the rare moment of foresight from their normally impulsive ally. There's more, Robin continued more soberly. The tablets also speak of the empty throne and its false occupant. It seems Joy Boy, or Nika, was engaged in direct conflict with a being called Im during the Void Century. Law repeated, his expression darkening. I've heard whispers of that name in certain ancient texts. Supposedly the true ruler behind the world government. Someone's actually sitting on the empty throne? Luffy asked, connecting the dots with surprising quickness. Robin nodded gravely. It appears so. Someone who has potentially been alive since the Void Century itself. This information sobered even Luffy momentarily. So there's a final boss we didn't know about. A final boss with 800 years of preparation, Law added grimly. To their surprise, Luffy's serious expression melted into his characteristic grin. Sounds like an adventure to me. The bigger the challenge, the more awesome it'll be when we win. His boundless confidence was contagious. Robin found herself smiling despite the gravity of the situation. Where do we go from here, Captain? Luffy stood up, stretching exuberantly. First, I need to practice this new power and get stronger. Then we keep following the original plan, find all the road poneglyphs, reach Laugh Tale, and figure out what the One Piece really is. And the world government? Law pressed. If they leave us alone, great. If not, Luffy punched his palm determinedly, we'll show them exactly what the Sun God can do. Thousands of miles away in Mariehua, the 5 elders received Kizaru's report in stunned silence. Complete failure, one finally said. The Seraphim prototype, lost. Pulsar Island, destroyed. And Straw Hat not only mastered Nika's power but demonstrated abilities beyond what even our ancient texts described. The situation has exceeded worst-case projections, another agreed grimly. We need to inform Im-sama immediately. I'm already here, came a soft voice from the shadows. The mysterious ruler of the world government stepped into the light, face partially obscured as always. I witnessed the events through Kizaru's visual den mushi. Then you understand the severity, one elder began. I understand that history repeats itself, I'm interrupted, voice cold with ancient anger. Joy Boy has returned in the form of this, pirate child. The drums beat once more. The challenge to my throne has been renewed. What are your orders, Im-sama? The oldest elder asked. Im turned to the window, gazing out at the world below, a world carefully crafted over 8 centuries of manipulation and control. 800 years ago, I faced Nika on Pulsar Island, Im revealed, surprising even the elders who thought they knew all the secrets. I defeated him by exploiting his compassion, his unwillingness to sacrifice innocence for victory. Im turned back to them, eyes gleaming with determination. Monkey D. Luffy shares that weakness. He transforms into Nika but retains his human heart. How do we exploit this? An elder questioned. Prepare the ancient weapons, I'm commanded. Not for immediate use, but as leverage. Identify everyone Straw Hat Luffy cares about. His hometown. His father's revolutionary base. Every island that has sheltered him. The elders paled at the implication. You suggest. I suggest we remind the sun god why darkness has ruled for 8 centuries, Im replied coldly. If direct confrontation fails, we will give him an impossible choice, surrender the power of Nika willingly, or watch as we erase everything he loves from existence. And if he refuses? Im's expression hardened into something inhuman. Then we demonstrate that our perfect system isn't built on empty threats. One island as an example should suffice. Perhaps that little village in East Blue where it all began. Even the elders, hardened by centuries of maintaining world order through whatever means necessary, seemed disturbed by the casual proposal to annihilate an entire island. Is such extremity necessary? One ventured carefully. Im's gaze turned to the speaker, who immediately regretted his question. 800 years ago, I underestimated what Nika represented. I thought destroying the ancient kingdom and erasing history would be enough. I was wrong. The world cannot afford my making the same mistake twice. As you command, Im-sama, the elders acquiesced in unison. As Im departed, the oldest elder remained behind, staring at a large world map on the wall. So it begins again, he murmured to himself. The final war for the soul of this world. Dawn broke over the Thousand Sunny as it sailed through calm seas, the crew finally resting after their ordeal. All except Luffy, who stood at the bow, watching the sunrise with unusual contemplation. In his mind, he could still hear the faint echo of the drums of liberation, quieter now but never truly silent again. With them came fragments of memories not his own, a massive straw hat in a sealed chamber, a princess who failed to keep a promise, 20 kings betraying the world, and a figure in shadow who had orchestrated it all. I'm still me, Luffy whispered to himself, a reminder and a promise. Monkey D. Luffy. Future Pirate King. But he was also something more now, a reawakened legend, the embodiment of freedom itself, the sun god returned to challenge the false order of the world. As the sun crested the horizon, Luffy grinned his characteristic grin, imagination already racing with the possibilities his new power offered. "Oi! Everyone," he shouted suddenly, startling his sleeping Nakama awake. "I just had the best idea. Watch this." His hair flickered white momentarily as he grabbed the air itself, pulling it like fabric to create a makeshift slide from the crow's nest to the deck. "Luffy! It's too early for this," Nami shouted from her cabin. But Luffy just laughed, that same joyous laugh that had echoed through the ages, the laugh of freedom that no power could ever truly silence. The drums of liberation had begun to beat once more, and this time, they would not be stopped. As the Thousand Sunny sailed toward new adventures, the world around it was already changing. News of the Sun God spread across the seas, carried by whispers, newspapers, and the mysterious will that connects all things. In fishmen enslaved in Mary Geos, hope stirred for the first time in generations. In revolutionaries fighting against tyranny, resolve hardened. In ancient beings who had watched the world for centuries, interest awakened. And in the heart of the world government, fear spread like a cancer. The game had changed. The final pieces were moving into position. The dawn was coming. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.